It was purpose that made that perfect Palestinian Jew named Jesus look into a cup and suggest, nevertheless, thy will be done. But it was painful enduring the crucifixion. So might I submit and suggest to someone today that if pain was his death certificate, purpose became our birth certificate. That you cannot properly shout about the power of the resurrection until you grasp in totality the sovereignty of the crucifixion. And the problem with the 21st century believer, the 21st century student, the new mindset that we have floating around is that everybody wants to live, but nobody wants to die. Everybody wants to win, but nobody wants to struggle. And I've lived long enough to discover that when it comes to life, you will have your ups and you will have your downs. But one songwriter said, if I had good with no bad, what would I become? It's critical because when we examine the life of Dr. King, we see a brother who's in purpose, but often in pain. And one of my frustrations, Father, is that sadly, every year around this time, I personally believe that Dr. King is rolling over in his grave. My grandfather would get upset if he heard me say that. I believe every year around this time, as we honor Dr. King, I personally believe he's rolling over in his grave. Why do you say that, Pastor Mike? Because every year around this time, we remember him, then we dismember him. We remember him, then we dismember him. Sadly, we freeze Dr. King at the March on Washington as if his entire life was surrounded around a 4-minute message. When we don't realize, on August 28th, 1963, when he made the statement, I have a dream, he was branded a dreamer, but he was murdered because he became America's nightmare. That we remember him, then we dismember him. As long as he was dreaming, he was being warned by the FBI. As long as he was dreaming, he had people supporting his vision. But when he began to stand up for equal rights and equal pay and fight for brothers and sisters across the waters, that's when they began to label him a nightmare. Have you ever stopped to consider that at the time of Dr. King's death, his approval ratings were in the mud? At the time of his death, he was labeled the most hated man in America. And if I had to pause and parenthetically digress, I would like to inspire somebody listening to me today that be careful when you get a dream. Because most people believe they have a dream when in actuality, they just have a fantasy. A fantasy only benefits you, but a dream blesses everybody around you. And I don't know about you, but I believe that at Providence, there are some people in this room right now who can say, no, I don't have a fantasy, but rather I have a dream. They could not handle Dr. King, not because of his dream, but they could not handle him because he was a threat. He was a threat to the norm. He was a threat to the standard. He was a threat that for the first time in America, here was rising up an individual who took on a new strategy, who was putting God first, who had people from all racial backlines and all different creeds coming together